Hi, welcome to Life on the Rock. Tonight we have an unusual show for you. We have a pre-tape show with Andreas Widmer. He is a former Swiss Guard. He'll be talking about his experiences. But first, we want to talk about our Holy Father's resignation. And we have Andreya Svidler from the Catholic News Agency on the line. And she is in Rome right now, and she's going to share with us some of her meetings with young people this evening. So, Andreya, are you there?
Hi, Father Mark. How are you? Yes, I am here.
Okay, and I know you've been speaking with different groups of young people there in Rome. How would you describe the mood there in Rome?
Well, I think that the overall mood that they've been, portraying is that they have mixed feelings. They're sad to see the Pope go, but they're also looking forward to see a new Pope come, and they're very curious as to what he's going to be. There are different possibilities, different options, different cardinals. It could be that he's a young cardinal elected as a pope. It could be that he's someone media savvy, which is what a lot of people are hoping for. But yes, just a variety of mixed feelings, sad and happy.
You know, one thing I've noticed about this Holy Father is he has a special way of speaking to modern man. He knows the situation people face, the challenges to the spiritual life. Have you heard that from young people? Has he connected to them on a heart level, speaking to their heart, so to speak?
Well, yes, I think that the Holy Father has tried very, very hard to engage with the young people, and I think he's done so very well. I think it came across through the 3 different World Youth Days that he's done. He's very, he has attracted a lot of young people back into the church, and he's also had a lot of people converting and turning back into the church. I've heard a lot of conversion stories, especially last year when I attended the World Youth Day in Madrid. It was very, very emotional.
What are some of the different groups you've met there in Rome of young people?
Well, actually today and yesterday and throughout the week, there have been people from all over the world coming, young people from the Middle East, from Lebanon, from Syria, from Egypt, from across South America, from the United States, from everywhere that you can imagine. And I've had mixed reactions from them. I had a couple saying that they were very, very sad to see the Pope leave. I also had another couple from Germany to say, well, this is actually making the church look more human. And they were, just different reactions from everyone.
Mm-hmm. What was the reaction from the people in the Middle East? What did they say in particular?
Yes, well, I spoke with a few Syrians, and they were really, really hoping that the next Pope is from Lebanon, the new cardinal from Lebanon that was made cardinal in November's consistory. And they're saying that if he is elected as Pope, this could be a huge thing for the entire Middle East, but not only for the Christians in the Middle East, also for Muslims from the Middle East, that could make them see the church with different eyes and bring them closer to Christians, perhaps.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Andreya Svidler, for joining us and giving us those insights. And when I tell everyone to be sure to join us, we're going to do some Life on the Rock specials on March 7th and March 14th from Rome. So we hope to interview groups of young people, get their reactions, and do different updates from Rome. So now we're going to continue with our regular Life on the Rock with Andreas Widmer.
Your life, whether you're ready or not. Sometimes it's rough and it takes all that you've got, but he's been here just waiting for you to knock, to take his hand and plant your feet on the rock. I want to live my life on the rock. I want to live my life on the rock. I want to live my life on the rock.
Hi, welcome to Life on the Rock. I'm Doug Barry, along with Brother John Paul. Father Mark is away once again on covert assignment. which is very apropos for tonight's show, considering we have a Swiss guard.
That's right.
An ex-Swiss guard on the show here. Oh, I'm sorry, not an ex-Swiss guard. He's always a Swiss guard. Like once a Marine, always a Marine. I think once a Swiss guard, always a Swiss guard. Yes, our guest tonight is Andreas Widmer, former Pontifical Swiss Guard and author of The Pope and the CEO, a book that he wrote on Pope John Paul II's Lessons to a Young Swiss Guard. You're going to love this show. This is going to be just a great topic to get into. And so we're not going to take a lot of time. We're going to jump to it pretty quickly. But we want to make one main mention here at the beginning of this show, this opening segment, and that is that the ongoing spiritual warfare is still to be embraced and engaged by all of us. The USCCB, remember, back at the end of 2012 in December, put forth a 5-point strategy to help fight this spiritual battle, to help stand up against these attacks, these increased attacks on life, on marriage, and on religious liberty. The 5-point strategy includes daily rosary, hour of adoration in churches and cathedrals across the nation, across the United States of America, once a month at least. Fasting, abstinence on Fridays, increased prayer intentions at Mass, and Fortnight for Freedom coming up in the summer of 2013. But it's interesting how a lot of times when these things come our way, we don't know exactly how to handle them. If someone were to hand you a sword and say, here's your weapon, now get out there and fight, and you see where the battle is, but you don't know how to handle the sword, as our guest tonight would be able to tell us, if we don't know how to handle the weapons in the midst of the conflict, we're in trouble. So the weapons that we have, these spiritual weapons from heaven, prayer and fasting and adoration, the rosary, these are amazing. And oftentimes we don't understand the full depth and the power of them. I don't know that we really can, because the spiritual nature of them, they're pretty powerful, pretty big issues. But we do need to delve into them a little bit and grow in a deeper understanding. And the church has done so much, brother, over the years, over 2,000 years, writing about great saints and great theologians writing about the power of these spiritual weapons. Tell us a little bit about why these things are so important, what we can learn.
Well, first of all, adoration is one of them, Doug. And the bishops focused on adoration, I think, is because, when you come before the Lord in adoration, you come before Him in His silent presence in the Eucharist. And I think all of us want God to speak to us. All of us want to have that Moses-like experience. But when we come before the Lord in the Blessed Sacrament, we come before Him in silence. So sometimes in the beginning, it's scary. I remember as a young man being told about our Perpetual Adoration Chapel. And I didn't know what that was. What's Perpetual Adoration? 21 years old, and them telling me this. And I started to go. And I couldn't sit still for 2 minutes. I would go in, and I would literally have to go out. I could not stand it, because in the silence, you really have to face who you are. You have to face who you are. You have to face your sins. You have to face, how God sees you. And I didn't like what I saw. And, literally, I would go in for 2 minutes and then go out. And then maybe a couple weeks later, I worked my way up to 5 minutes. A month later, I was doing 10 minutes. 6 months, I was doing a half hour. I was falling in love, with the Lord. And I would just recommend to people, when they start out going to adoration, you don't have to start with a holy hour. Start out small, baby steps. Start out with just stopping in your local church for 2 minutes.
Start out with a holy 5 minutes.
A holy 5 minutes.
There you go.
And just tell the Lord, say, Lord, I'm here. And just ask those questions. Say, Lord, who am I? What is life about? I want you to show me the way. And another thing, the rosary. The rosary is not just, a bunch of beads and we just, a repetitious prayer. But the rosary is really entering into the life of Christ, entering into the mysteries of redemption. So it's not so much about us, focusing in on the prayers, but the prayers actually help us to focus on the mystery that we're contemplating. For instance, we just came out of Christmas. Throughout the octave of Christmas, we prayed every day for 8 days. We prayed the joyful mysteries of the Rosary, the Annunciation, the Visitation, the Nativity, the Lord's birth, the presentation in the temple, and the finding in the temple. So, these mysteries have at their heart and soul within them Christ and the life of His Blessed Mother. So that's what we're to be, entering into. you know, when somebody would hand me the rosary, you know, when I was 15, 16 years old, I wouldn't have known what to do with it. So, you know, the bishops in doing this, they're encouraging us to take little steps forward, little baby steps.
And isn't a lot of this, I mean, adoration, the rosary, and fasting, these are all great ways and very important and necessary ways for us to basically deepen a sense of an ability of conversion.
Absolutely.
Because really,
it's all about conversion.
It's all about conversion. Everything is about conversion, and
Yeah.
that's one thing we have to remember out there. You know, as we go through this and we see what the USCCB has put forth for us in this nation to try to protect and preserve a lot of the great gifts that we have here, especially marriage and life and religious liberty. We need to convert. I need to convert. You need to convert. We all need to go deeper in that conversion. It allows God to use us more completely and more fully as His instruments in this world. It allows us to understand, really prioritizing things, what is most important. Honoring God and benefiting this world in whatever way, shape, and form God has given us the gifts and the abilities to do so. And we're going to hear a lot more about that from our guest tonight, Andreas Widmer. Excellent show. You're going to love this tonight, so don't go away. We're going to be back after this break with our guest, Andreya Widmer, and The Pope and the CEO. Awesome book coming up after this. Welcome back to Life on the Rock. Hi, I'm Doug Barry, and along with me is Brother John Paul again. Father Mark is away on covert assignment, and as I mentioned in the first segment, our guest here understands covert assignments.
Do it all the time.
There you go. Andreas Widmer, good to have you on the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You are the author of The Pope and the CEO, and this is a fantastic story in general about your life. And you were a Swiss Guard, but you still can be called up periodically for things. I mean,
We go back and volunteer at times.
Yeah.
I go back about once a year to help out, but not the close Secret Service kind of stuff, but more like just helping.
Right. Well, let's get into it right away because there's a lot to unpack here. We're not going to have time for the whole show, so we're going to make this a 3-hour show just for you. Nobody knew that, but the idea of you being a Swiss Guard, tell us a little bit how that all started. You were 18 when you heard about this, and
Yeah, you could say that I became a Swiss Guard for all the wrong reasons. Because what really attracted me is when I learned that there is an organization where they teach you how to be a bodyguard, like a Secret Service agent. I thought that was the coolest thing ever. And that's why I joined. I was very much physical. I was outdoors guy, sports, army. I just love that stuff.
And you're a big guy. I
And
mean, how tall are you?
6'9".
6'9". Wow, that's like 7'13" in Canada. That's
Yeah, that's good. So I went there for that, and religion or faith wasn't on my mind. You know, I'm a cradle Catholic, but I didn't. When I was done with my catechesis in Switzerland, I knew more about Buddha than I know about Jesus Christ. And
that's some interesting catechesis.
yeah, that's the 1970s for you right there.
Yeah.
But then I went to the Vatican and I started to get trained there. And first you're in a recruit school and you're in the barracks, you don't really leave, and it was great. I did enjoy the whole training and everything. It's just just like you read in the books. It's great. And then eventually they put me on assignment and I meet John Paul. And actually just the first time I ever met him, it was just amazing. It was one of these perfect emotional storms in your life where you end up in a place and you finally realize, you sort of see yourself without all the layers you put on around you. I had a tough guy image and all that. And I sort of started to realize that actually I'm actually not a tough guy. And what am I doing here in a foreign city? I didn't speak the language and all that. And I just it was Christmas Eve actually, and that even strengthened my emotional situation, or rather weakened it, because I was asked to work that night. And I was asked to guard his apartment. So I'm the guy outside the apartment, But at the time, that didn't really matter to me because I was just angry I had to work that night. I called home, they're all celebrating, I'm there, I'm just totally a mess, emotionally a mess, saying, what in the world did I do here? I don't know what to do with my life. You know, the whole. And then the commander called with the radio and said, John Paul is going to leave, you know, and he's going to come out your door. So eventually when he came out, you know, I had this little room, and he came out and he noticed my red eyes. And he looked at me and he says, oh, you're new, I have never met you, what's your name? And I said, well, Holy Father, my name is Andreas, and I'm from Lucerne, and so on and so forth. And he stretched out his hand. And so our hands meet, and we look, and his eyes met my eyes. And I could tell that he noticed my red eyes, but I didn't say anything. All I thought was, damn, there goes my cover. And so I stand there, and he looks at me and he says, of course, this is your first Christmas away from home, isn't it? That was the wrong thing to say to me. I'm like standing there, a tear coming down my cheek, and I couldn't say anything. All he did was pull me in and hold my elbow with his other arm, and he looked at me. He had these light gray eyes, and he looked me deep in my eyes, and he said, Andreas, I just want to thank you for the sacrifice you're making here tonight. I really appreciate you doing this, and I'm going to go celebrate Mass now, and I'm going to pray for you as I say the Mass tonight. Wow. And with that, he said goodbye and Merry Christmas, and he walked away, and my life changed in the sense that, first off, it wasn't even him saying, why don't you go and pray? It'll make you feel better. No. That's when you're converting somebody, they can't pray yet. It's like what you said in the introduction. I wasn't able to do this yet. He said, I'll pray for you. So it's right away that kinship, that friend being a friend. And that first gave me the incentive to say, oh, this is a different kind of guy. I need to watch him more closely. And you know, as a guard, you're next to him all the time. I mean, not every day, but very regularly. And I just started to get to know him better. And I remember a moment where I literally said, whatever this guy has, that's what I want. And for him, when you were in awe of him, what he did is he pointed to Christ. So here he's earning my respect. And what he does is he points at Christ and he says, that's who I have. Because what you're looking at is, you're looking at me, but you're really not. What I have is Christ, and I want you to have him too.
Now, is your story unique, or do the other Swiss guards, I mean, everybody's human, and they're bringing some sort of background or whatever to this position, but being in the presence of this man and so many holy individuals over in that vicinity, in that world, are others going through this as you're sharing, conversation with buddies?
I would say most guards. So not all guards come with a strong faith. Like I didn't come with a strong faith, and I'm glad they're not making that a litmus test. You have to be Catholic and baptized and confirmed and so on. But they're of course looking at your physical and mental capabilities before they hire you. It's a foreign legion, so you have to apply to get there. Some do this also for faith reasons, and they are they have the faith when they get there, and that may strengthen and deepen. But I would say about half of more than half of the guys who go there without the faith, they find it there. And every year, I just heard recently somebody tell me that they have about 3 vocations every year. Wow! Out of the guards.
Now, and just kind of some background about the guards. They've been around a long time. What's the history on the? When did
1506.
1506.
We just celebrated 500 years 6 years ago. And man, that was the best party I've ever been to. So the Pope invited everybody, all the ex-guards, 2,000 ex-guards, and everybody came to Rome, and he had a special audience, and we were all there, and he said how happy the papacy was to have the Swiss guards, and then they opened the St. Angel's Castle, and the whole thing was like with tables of food and wine, and 2,000 of us just had a huge party there, and then they had fireworks over the Tiber, and it was, and then you see all the guys you surfed with over the years, and it's like a flashback. It's almost like if you're 20 again. It was an amazing event.
Now, for the people who don't understand, excuse me, the Swiss Guards, we see the image of the guard in the decorative uniform, and some stop there. They think that that's it. That's what the Swiss Guard is. They are Swiss Guards, but tell us a little bit, if you can, how much you can tell us about the different levels, and that's an introductory level for the most part, isn't it?
Yeah, most of the time, so we have a gala uniform, or gala uniform as you call it, and that's the uniform that you see. People say it's by Michelangelo, but it actually was designed about 100 and some years ago by one of the commanders of the guards.
Okay, so Michelangelo didn't really design
Did not design, I'm sorry guys, he didn't design that, he didn't design that. But that's the gala uniform, and you wear that for ceremonial purposes and so on. Just like here in the US, you'd have the Marines with their nice, I mean, that's not what they use when they do their actual work. The actual work is, so the mission of the Swiss Guards is the security of the person of the Holy Father. And that is what we do. Okay. And that often is done, you know, beyond the gala uniform. You do that as any Secret Service would protect a person, like the president of any country would be protected.
And the training is pretty intense. You guys are trained very, very well in combat, and I mean, hand to hand. I mean, you can handle, you can like if brother came at you right now.
Oh yeah, you're talking about this earlier.
You could take us both down like that.
He has a rosary with him, so no, him I can't take.
The greatest weapon.
Yeah.
There you go. There you go. Yeah. But you are trained. It's not just ceremonial. I mean, the Swiss Guards are trained as
it's
Secret
for real.
Service bodyguards.
It's like any Secret Service, and they are very well trained.
Yeah. Oh, that's excellent. And 2000, so you can get called up periodically now or asked to come back and help out with different
they call out and say, well, the ex-guards, if they come in and help, especially to help when the young guards come and they're sworn in, we go back and help so that they get some time off to be with their parents, because the Pope actually invites the parents for a private audience to thank them for the service of their son. Right. And so then we fill in, we go and do basic service, but don't fret, I'm not putting on the uniform. That they keep to the active guards. But no, we go and help out with basic security things and help in the barracks and anything that they need us to do.
And I would think there's got to be a little bit of the, you know, passing on the old dog to the young dog sort of thing too. That's always good too, isn't it?
And you know, it creates cohesion. You get to know all the guys who serve now. They get to know the older guys. It's a fraternity. Yeah. So it's a beautiful fraternity of 2,000 men who have served this unique duty. And it's really a worldwide organization at this point, and it's just always joyful for all of us to come together. And for us, you know, for me to go back, you know, 20 some years after I've been in the Guards, to go and sleep in the barracks again after all this time, it's sort of a, you know, I remember the first time I did this service, I came back, and I write about this in this book, in the book I wrote, that after 20 years, the first night back in the barracks, I was lying in the bed and I saw the same ceiling as I remember. It was like a flashback that the last night in the Vatican, I look up at the ceiling and I pray. I say my night prayers, and I say to God, look, I feel like I'm jumping off a cliff, and literally God knows what's coming now, because I don't know. I feel you're leading me away from here to go do my life now. I didn't have a job. I didn't have anything. I met my wife in Rome, and I felt I was called to marry her and to leave the Guards and do something else. But at this point, I didn't even know that I was going to come to America or anything. I just knew nothing. And I remember that prayer of saying, Lord, I'm just going to trust you here, okay? So that's the only way I got myself to sleep that night, is to say, I'm going to just have to trust you. I come back 20 years later and I look at that ceiling, and a thought comes right into my mind. And I say, Lord, now I glorify you. Because what you've done, what you've given me in my life, I'm glad I didn't know at the time, because it would have been very difficult to take all the good and the bad that would come at once. But I glorify you for all the graces and gifts you've given me in my life, and all the experiences, the good and the bad ones. And it was probably my most joyful night prayer ever.
Wow. And the oath that you take as a Swiss Guard, I read through this. Can you still recite it? Do you remember it?
Yeah. I swear, well, of course I didn't say it in English, man, to loyally and faithfully execute the duties that were described as truly as God and His holy and our holy saints help me.
Right. But
that's like 80%.
Yeah, there's a part in there about giving, even if it means called to give your life in defense of the Pope, right?
I left out the 20 most important percent. So much for the 80-20 rule. I knew the 80%, but the 20% that are all of it.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful oath, because when it really comes down to it, the only way that you can really protect somebody is with your body. And that's what the Swiss Guards will do. And that's what they have done in the past.
That's a great statement. And your hand is on the Swiss Guard, on the
You hold the
flag.
Swiss Guard flag
Yeah.
that has the Pope, the seal, coat of arms of the Pope, and the coat of arms of your commander, and then it has the Medici colors and the Swiss flag on it as well.
Yeah. That's powerful. It's fantastic. Well, we're going to run to a break now. When we come back, going to get into a little bit about this book you wrote and where the Lord took you after that night prayer you had. So don't go away, anybody or everybody or all of you. We'll be back after this. Welcome back to Life on the Rock. We're glad you're with us. I'm Doug Barry, along with Brother John Paul, filling in for Father Mark, and we have our guest tonight, Andreas Widmer, who is a Swiss Guard, retired Swiss Guard, but still shows up once in a while when secret missions are called upon. And they need a really tall guy to step in.
But somebody needs to finish the pudding in the barracks.
That's right.
We got some leftovers. Can
Yeah.
you come and clean them up?
I'll be there in a jiffy.
6'9", tall guy. And you said, I know before the show, that when John Paul II met you and your parents,
Yeah.
what did he say? I thought I got a kick out of this. Describe actually the scene as you're coming towards the Holy Father.
I believe when I became a man was in the Guards, and the specific event was, the Pope invites your parents to go to thank them for your service. That's right after you're sworn in. You go see the Pope, and he thanks you in a private audience. And so John Paul stands at the end of a corridor, and I walk up with my parents. And as we get closer, I realized that both of my parents held my hand. And you see, I've held my parents' hands many times, but it was also always me holding their hands. This was the first time that they held my hand. And we get closer, and before we even get to him, he says, "Oh, this is Andreas, my tallest guard. You must be I see you have the height from your father." And my dad is, of course. And then he says, "So that is your wonderful mother?" And my mother just started to cry. And I just felt so proud and so wonderful that here's the Pope, and I'm one of his own. And he welcomed me as a friend and showed this to my parents. And I think that's such a beautiful message there. Later on, if you're a leader of anything in a youth group or in a parish, or if you're leading somebody at work, or you're a CEO even, when somebody meets you in relation to this person that you're working with, how do they use that occasion? For themselves? Or do they use it like John Paul did this as an example, to say, "Oh, I'm so glad for you to, this is my top guy and I'm so proud," and to actually say sincere praise for this person that you're meeting. So you're using your own stature or importance in a way, or significance in that organization, and you use it for this other person's benefit, which is a very servant leadership kind of thing to do. It struck me that once John Paul talked about this, and we do this as parents as well. John Paul said that when God spoke publicly about Jesus, his son, I think he only spoke about him twice publicly. And both times he said, "This is my beloved son, of whom
I am well pleased.
With whom I am well pleased." Both times he said, the attaboy. Like both times. Look,
Way to go, son.
This is God talking about his son.
Yeah.
How much more when I talk about my son, when you talk about your son, when you talk about your spiritual children, are we called to say, "I am well pleased with you"? And not just say it in the secrecy of a family gathering, but to say it publicly.
And you're right. That's an excellent point. This is my son or my daughter. Aren't they great?
Exactly.
Aren't they wonderful?
And to
Isn't
do
there
it
something great
and
about them?
publicly.
Yeah.
And so when you meet somebody, you know, as a manager, as a person in charge of something, you're given custody, like stewardship of the people.
Yeah.
How often do you publicly recognize somebody?
Yeah. Look at my employees. Look what a great job they do.
Yeah.
Look how
And that
fantastic.
could change somebody's life too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You recognizing, you know, their dignity.
Yeah. And it commits you to their well-being because you publicly do that.
And you saw that a lot with John Paul II. I mean, that was just the way he was.
He did this many times. I saw him do this many times with other people as well. And it's not some made up, you know, not some insincere made up fact about somebody, but it was a sincere something that he observed.
You know, he's known for so many great writings on dignity and the value of the individual. One of the things that always stands out to me is when he says that we are unrepeatable.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that term that you are unrepeatable. There's never been anybody like
Yeah.
you, never will be anybody like you, and you have that unique, unrepeatable value and dignity in God's eyes. And if we saw that in one another and treated each other with that kind of respect, the world would be just a little bit nicer, I think, to live in.
Yeah. To focus on the other. You know, that's so. You might say, people sometimes say, why the Pope and the CEO? What does that have to do with each other? And I don't mean here that the Pope is the CEO. What I mean is the Pope is a leader.
Yeah.
And we, as the leaders on the private sector side, have a lot to learn from somebody like him who showed what leadership is, what servant leadership is. The Pope, by the way, one of his titles is the servant of the servants of God. Yeah? And that's truly the model of servant leadership. And what I mean is to say, what can I was very much blessed with a business career, with a very successful business career, with many startups and really in the eyes of this world, a lot of commercial success. What can I learn from somebody like the Pope, and specifically like Karol Wojtyła, John Paul II? Because, you know, for the first 10, 15 years of my career, I didn't let my faith penetrate my work. I had these two things separate. I like to say, you know, I was a Sunday Catholic, and I was okay if Jesus was the man on Sunday, as long as I was the man on Monday through Saturday. Well, that's not Christianity. Jesus wants to be the man all week.
Yeah.
And he wants Sunday is like a car going to the gas station. And then during the week I can run because on that fuel, yeah? And that's what you say at the end of Mass. Go out into the world now and go spread the gospel and be the leaven of the world. Well, I didn't do that for most of my career. Then many things happened, I describe in the book, good and bad things, but some of them really negative things, like losing a lot of money, that started to teach me and make me pay attention to the silo that I had.
Well, and let's make sure the audience understands that when you say losing a lot of money, you mean millions of dollars. You don't just mean thousands or 100,000. You're talking about you were robbed of millions of dollars.
Yeah, we sold the company, and I had a piece of that company, and it turned out that the people we sold this to, that was a fraudulent organization. Even though, you know, it's like a Enron kind of thing. It was a bit before Enron, but it was the same thing. It was, cooking the books and all that. Indeed, we didn't know, and we sold the company, and poof, the whole thing goes away. Wow. So that's a very painful experience, and it tested what I was made of.
Because when you left the Swiss Guard, and how long were you in the Swiss Guard?
2 years.
2 years you were there, and you're laying in bed, you're looking at the ceiling, and you're saying, okay, Lord, here we go.
Yeah.
I'm leaving. And then you go into the business world, but you had said before the show that you still weren't fully on board with really being that righteous, virtuous man.
As I said, some people do 1 step forward, 2 steps back. I do 1 step forward, 200 steps back. And so wow. God needs a lot of patience with me.
With all of us.
And so, it took a while. Some parts of my life, I found my vocation in Rome. So when I found out that God exists, I first thought, well, then I'm going to be a priest. And then God had other plans, and I met the most wonderful woman you could ever meet, Michelle. And I fell in love. The day I met her, I knew that this is my wife. Even though I didn't speak English yet, and so, but I just knew that this is my wife.
I'm sorry, Andreas. You said the most wonderful woman, and I don't want to fight you over this.
Now comes the fight.
Yeah, because I'm pretty well trained.
Yeah.
but you're a little taller.
Yeah.
But my wife would be the most wonderful.
Wonderful
Wonderful
break
wife.
this up, the Blessed Mother.
Yeah. Now we're really going.
All right, we both lose there. Okay.
So my vocation, I found, was fulfilled through Michelle, through marrying Michelle, and my primary vocation, and that is something that God really put a strong sense of peace and righteousness into my life. That is my rock of. Just that's what I'm tethered.
So you met her while you were Swiss
I
Guard?
met her while I was there. She's, thank God, she's a very strong, good Catholic woman, and that tethered me and gave me, ground under my feet for those whole years that I went off in business, became very successful, and started to think that this was all me. You see, when you become successful, when what we have as humans is when things don't work, it's the other guy's fault. When things work, is because of me.
It's all about me.
And so I of course thought it was me, and then you suffer the sin of pride, and I think pride is the original sin. I'm no theologian here, but I'm thinking that is the original sin of wanting to be like God, of saying, me, I'm the chief. And I started to feel like this, that the success I had was because of me, and that erodes your spirituality, that pushes God out from your heart, because you become more and more full of yourself, and there's no space for two. And so in a way, some of these losses that I have are actually God sent, and I sincerely mean this. That if it wasn't for some of these learning experiences, including losing a lot of money, I wouldn't have had this second conversion. And that's what I love about being a Catholic. We have a conversion every day. Like we don't have one conversion and then for us this is an ongoing process. Right. So I can do this over and over and over again, and so this whole failure in my business life in a way led me to step back and reconsider and figure out, okay, what am I doing here? What is this all about? And it eventually led for me to reconcile my faith and my work.
And so there's a moment, was it after the loss of the big money there, was it an impacting something or another that, I think you described it earlier before the show as, pulling the cord with the knot in it, and all of a sudden, boom, the knot comes undone, and you see it in its straight
it makes sense.
path.
It's like a moment of grace.
Yeah.
It's an epiphany.
So was it like that, or was it a slower process?
No, it pretty much was like that.
Just all of a sudden.
John Paul gave a talk on I think it was the Feast of St. Joseph in the year 2000. And he said, you see, when we work, we don't just make more, we become more. We become more human. God is a worker. God is a business person. God is creative. The origin of creativity is God. So God works just like you and I go to the office every day. God does that too, did that with the creation. And so when we work, we imitate God. So the more we do this, the more we are like in God's image. This is one of the ways that we imitate God. And so that means when we do this right, we should become more human, not less. That's when the light went off in my head and said, I see. Oh, work is not about me. Work is actually a modeling of God.
That's where business and faith came together for you.
From then on, once I started to look at it from that perspective, you're looking at the same thing and suddenly it looks like something else.
We're going to run to a break now, and we'll come back, Andreas. Let's get in a little more now what you're doing now with that epiphany that you've had, and because now what you do business-wise, you've kind of really redirected that to help coach and train others to understand the undoing of this knot.
Hopefully, other people can do this easier than me.
God willing, right? Okay, we'll be back after this. Don't go away, or Andreas may have to come and get you, and as a Swiss Guard, he can do that, and he's got friends. Back after this. Welcome back to Life from the Rock. Doug Barry here. Father Mark is not here, forgive me, with Brother John Paul. And Andreas Widmer, who is a father. Yeah. How many children do you have?
One. Shout out to little Eli. Yeah. I love you very much.
Yeah. This is your son, with who you are well pleased.
I am well pleased with Eli.
That's awesome.
I truly am. He's 8 years old, wonderful little boy.
Awesome. And you're teaching him self-defense?
Oh yeah, he's fine. And he gets me on it. And he wins.
He's 8. By the time he's 10, he's going to be able to kill people 3 ways.
And he's been, hear this. He's been to the Swiss Guards and they put the armor on him.
Really?
Oh boy, did he ever have a ball.
I'm sure.
We went into the old armory and a friend of mine is the armiero there and he took out one of the 300-year-old armors and put it on him.
Wow.
Now you do that to an 8-year-old?
Oh, man.
He's hooked on the Swiss Guards.
That's it.
Yeah.
He'll be one.
And he knows it's authentic stuff. It's the real McCoy.
That was a really emotional moment for me. Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, congratulations on that son. And you've been married just about as many years as me and my wife have. You got 22 years of marriage at this point, right? Yeah.
22 years, just a little while ago.
Yeah, my wife and I are just about 23 right now. So, all right, let's get into the book here. Last segment here. I want to make sure we address a little bit more of this and what you're doing. You give a lot of talks. You do coaching and mentoring and such to CEOs, businesses, and so forth. Just fill us in a little bit, because people are going to want to bring you in, and I know you're busy already, but
so
you can help a lot of people.
Focusing on what I'm interested in is that whole aspect of when we work, we don't just make more, we become more.
Right.
And it's very difficult when you develop as a person, even and the company is nothing else but then a group of people doing something together. But those people, you can't bring a part of you to the workplace and another part you don't. Because if another part is suffering and your work part suffers along with it, we all know that. We worked with people in our own lives. I've had times where I couldn't do my best at work because I had other issues that weren't right. So to look at both, first of all, your own life and say, how do I live a balanced life? I mean, we're talking about, now they say the company pays for the fitness studio and things like that to make sure that you're healthy and you don't get sick and everything. Well, what about the company starting to encourage you to get spiritual direction and get the sacraments regularly and give you some time to go to church? Because guess what? If you're spiritually empty and void, that will affect, of course, not just your productivity, but the kind of things you're making. I love this sentence by a professor I recently met from St. Thomas University who said, the litmus test of our product, of our company, we're called to co-create in a sense, to participate in God's creation. But the way you know that you participate in that with your products and services is if you create goods that are truly good and you provide services that truly serve. Mm-hmm. That's in part a spiritual measure. So what I'm after is to help people to integrate their life. I'm not a spiritual director. What I am is a coach to teams, to groups, or to individuals to say, how do you balance your life more so that when you're at work, you can be fully at work. And when you're with your children, you can be fully with your children. When you're with your wife, you can be fully with your wife. You can't do that if anything is out of order. What happens is the easiest thing, and that is just to go to work and then do your best thinking at work. Yet you're educating a child that is a soul that will never die and live forever and will be your legacy on earth. Yet your best thinking you didn't use for this child, you used it for some product at work. Or your wife, which is your responsibility to bring to heaven. And the best thinking you do is for work. There's something out of kilter with this. And there is a spiritual malaise, if you wish. I look at this, but not only from the spiritual level, but to see to me this all comes together. If it's true that we become more human when we work, then the whole integral part of my humanity needs to be able to play at work, to come to play at work. And so my focus in helping people and helping teams is to find that equilibrium and integrate their faith in this, and then work on the different parts of life and ensure that they have a plan that all of these get developed to the next level, because ultimately we're called to excellence. Mm-hmm. And the highest excellence and the model of excellence is of course God. And we have saints like John Paul II, blessed now, but I think he's a saint, as a model of excellence. These are all like if you walk into a stadium and you see the retired numbers of people who made it to the Hall of Fame, that's our saints. That there are levels, they're models of excellence, and those are the people who help us to model ourselves, not to do exactly what they did, but to try to apply those ideas to the way we play and what we do. That's part of what I do. The other part I do is I decided to teach. I met a man I met him in Rome, Dr. Andrew Bella. He's Maltese. I always say that because there's only like 2 Maltese people I've ever met. I wonder how many are there actually.
It's kind of an extinct group of people.
It's a little island, so there can't be that many there.
No, there can't be.
But I know Abella is from Malta, and he's a wonderful guy. I just the minute I met him, he approached me and we talked, and he loved the book, so he has very good taste in literature. But he loved the book, and he said, hey, you know, we're doing this, and they started a business school at Catholic University, a really wonderful school. And he talked to me about his vision, and we're just now actually, in January, starting the full-fledged business school, which we always had an undergraduate degree, now we're starting to offer graduate degrees. And he has this really vision of business as a vocation, and start to teach people excellence across the board, integrated development, integral human development in business. And that's his vision of what he wants to provide as the business school of Catholic University. And I just have to be a part of that. So I asked him if he would please have me, and I started to teach there last September. And it's just, I can't tell you how wonderful it is to be on that team. It's probably in all of my work life, it's one of the jobs I feel in the environment and with the people I'm working with, feel the most natural and happy.
Now, right now, our society, our world, you know, gives successful businesses sometimes a bit of a bad rap because of the idea of that it's all about profit, it's all about money, it's all about, you know, the bottom line and so forth. And you had said something in a video I saw a clip of where you talked about profit. And profit is not, man is not made for profit, profit is made for man. Can you explain that briefly?
Well, profit is a little bit like oxygen in this room. That we're not sitting here, so he's responsible for the show right now, but if this was a business now, and he would have to make sure this is profitable. And so this would be the same as having oxygen in the room, but he's not sitting here saying, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. I wonder how much more air there is in this room. You know, breathe in, breathe out. No, actually, you're worrying about what we're actually doing, but if I take the air out of this room, in 2 minutes we'll be dead. 3, tops. Right. That's what profit is. If you take profit out of the company, it's like taking air out of the room for a human being. Companies can't live without profit, but companies don't live for profit. Companies shouldn't sit there saying profit, 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 profit. That's like a human being sitting here going, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. That's not, if you do that, you're going to fail. Most successful companies do something beyond them. They're a truly Christian thing, and I find business a really Christian vocation because business is inherently other-directed. If I don't find out what it is that you would like in a cup or in the drink, in the kind of taste of a soda pop or something like that, I have to think of you, not of me. Business is inherently other-directed or it won't work. This is the beauty of the free market, that if we have a free market, I have to please somebody else other than me.
And that's where then the moral compass, so to speak, comes into play, because if I'm thinking about the other, but my thoughts are simply what gives you a temporary fix or a temporary fill, that even addictive,
then it's not a product that's truly good.
It's not truly good then.
I have to see the worldview at the core of this as a human being. Who am I? I start my book out with saying, who am I? And what am I doing here? It's like that presidential campaign. Remember that guy who said, what am I doing here? So, but it's a very good question to say, who am I and what am I doing here? I am here. I'm made for one thing, and that is to go to heaven and be with God. So are you, so are you. So is every employee in my company. So is every customer that my company sells something to. If I hinder that, I abuse the mission and purpose of my business. That's why this Professor Goodpaster at St. Thomas says, products that are truly, goods that are truly good, services that truly serve. Truly good means it helps you on that path. You know, I talk about also loving your employees. I love the Italian expression of love. Here we say, I love. Well, I love this water, I love this chair, I love you, and I love my wife. It's very undistinguished. In Italian, if you love a person, you don't say ti amo, you say ti voglio bene. I want your good. That's what Christian love is. I want your good. What is your ultimate good? Your ultimate good is God. Your ultimate good is go to heaven. So if I love you, how would I ever do anything to make you not reach that which is the good for you? And that's something we need to keep in mind when we do business. And business itself is really a force for good. It's when we abuse it. It's like love. You know, I can love and grow jealousy, but then I'm perversing love. I can love and become only physical, then I'm perversing love. But love as a sentiment is a godly thing, and work as an activity is a godly thing.
We got just a minute left. This has gone very fast. What in the closing minute would you want to say to the world, the millions of people listening from the Pacific Rim to Australia to all over Europe, even in Switzerland probably? Even in Switzerland. Then I have to say it in Swiss German. Now, what I'd like you, I'll do a dare for you. Okay. If you're watching this show, pray. If you're a leader of any kind of organization or company, take this next week and specifically pray for every one of your employees, every one of your direct reports. Pray for them. What I mean with that, John Paul used to say, prayer is not for God, it's for you. What I mean with that, when you pray, you start to look at somebody through God's eyes. And you see them in the light of that ti voglio bene, of what is God's plan for this person. And I ask you to just take 10 or 15 minutes, take the name of that person and start to pray for this person and see what you come up with. Maybe they are in the wrong position, especially the people maybe you have trouble with, but even the others. Maybe they're in the wrong position and you could help them get into the right position. Maybe there's certain training you could do for them that helps them excel. How would you just bring this name in silence to God and pray and see what happens? Do this for a week for every one of your direct reports. Maybe twice, maybe 3 times over a week. And write it down as you think, and then come back to it the next time. See what happens. Excellent. Well, thank you so much for being on the show, Andreas.
Thank you.
Excellent
it's my
material.
pleasure.
The Pope
Thank
and
you,
the CEO would encourage you all to get a copy of it and take it to heart and pray. Take that challenge up. Brother, can you leave us with a blessing, please?
Sure. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May He turn His face to you and be merciful to you. May He give you His countenance to you and give you much peace in your life. May Almighty God bless you, the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. Amen. See you next time.
See you next week.